Welcome to Lesson 5 in this first module, the method. And this lesson is going to be the story time formula. Now, this is a specific formula to help you create a powerful and engaging story. And I want to start with this quote by Les Brown. Les Brown is my mentor, and he is a powerful speaker. And one of the things he said is, don't just report the story, experience the story. Don't just report the story, experience the story. So let me break down this story time formula for you. And you're going to need to take notes on this, so make sure you have your paper and pencil ready. We're going to break down the word story, S-T-O-R-Y. S, you have to set the scene. So you're going to get the audience to see where this story takes place, what's going on, what is the transaction that is going on between the characters in this story. The T is you're going to take them on a ride. Take them on a ride, right? It has to be a journey. You would never watch a TV show if there was no drama in it or no laughter in it or there was no twist and turn. So you have to take them on a ride. The O, there has to be an objection. I'm sorry, there has to be an obstacle, right? There has to be something that people say, wait, I object to that. I agree with that. That's not right. There has to be an obstacle. So the third thing is an obstacle. The R, there has to be a resolution. If you watch a movie and you go through all these twists and turns, at the end of the movie, there is something that happens that creates a resolution. And then the Y, you have to make the connection between that story and the audience members. So I'm going to break that word down again. Make sure you have taken notes. S, you want to set the scene. T, you want to take the listener on a ride. O, you want to have an obstacle. R, you want to have a resolution. And Y, you have to make the connection. You make the connection between that story and your audience members. Now, when you look at making the connection, how do you do that? Well, one of the things you could do it is with those reflective questions that I talked about in the previous section. These questions make them think about how have they experienced this type of situation or setback, and how is this relevant to them. So that's very important. The reason that this story formula is very important is because it gives you the ability to create a repeatable pattern for creating engaging stories. So if you write out your story, S-T-O-R-Y, and the first thing is set the scene. You write where the story takes place. The T, what is the twists and turns of the story? How are you going to take them on a ride? The O, what is going to be the obstacle in this story? Or the R, how does this story resolve itself? And then Y, how are you going to connect it to the audience? If you write this out, then you will have a repeatable pattern that you can put together a story automatically and very quickly. Now, let me tell you a story that I had, a situation I ran into. I was a surgical tech where we passed instruments to the surgeon, and one of the doctors was working and he was training a med student who was sitting across from him, and he was teaching her how to suture and tie. We were actually in surgery, and she wasn't getting it because he was across the table from her, which made her backwards and upside down. So every time she tried to do it, she was like, I don't get it. And then he started yelling at her. And I interrupted him and I said, Doc, she's not getting it. She's backwards and upside down. Reuben, who's teaching her, me or you? Well, nobody, because teaching requires learning and she's not learning anything. Well, when you teach, then talk. Until then, be quiet. Man, when he said that to me, that really put a shift in my mindset. And it let me know that I had to do something. And so I had an idea that day that what if I could go out with a couple of friends, come up with some things at Home Depot, I think is where we went, to create a suture and tying kit. Something that people could practice on at home so that they didn't have to get yelled at right in the middle of surgery in front of everybody else. Well, we went out to Home Depot and we got some plexiglass board and some PVC pipe and some hooks and some Velcro strips and all of these things, and we literally created this makeshift suture and tying kit. We showed it to people and they said, that's crazy. That'll never work. Never going to use that. That's terrible. But we still did it. We still shared it with people. We still made several of them and then practiced it. But what we also did is we showed it to an engineer. He created a big 3D drawing. And then we took that 3D drawing to Ferguson Manufacturing. And Ferguson Manufacturing created the injection mold. And then we started producing and manufacturing those suture and tying kits. And then we created a DVD that taught the techniques, and one of the surgeons lectured on it. And I remember our first 1,000 kits in the warehouse. But what I really remember was when I saw the kit at KU Medical School bookstore. And I took a picture of it. And I got one, and I took it to that doctor. And I said, "Doc, I want to show you something." "What do you have?" "Look at this kit." "This is amazing," he said. "Where did you get this at?" I said, "Well, I purchased this one at the KU Medical School bookstore." "Yeah, but where did it come from?" I said, "Well, these guys made it." "Well, who?" I said, "We did." He said, "You came up with this?" I said, "Yes, sir, we came up with this." He said, "Well, what made you come up with that?" I said, "Well, believe it or not, it was when I was working with this surgeon who I was telling him it's not right to yell at students in the case, and he told me when I teach, then say something." And you know what he said? "Well, who was that?" Right? He didn't even remember it was him. He had no idea. What's the purpose of that? What's the moral of that story? Is that sometimes we're mad at people. We're holding a grudge. We're trying to prove something to someone who has no idea that we even have anything going on. And my question for you is, when is the time that you've been mad? You've been upset. You haven't called someone. You've been punishing them. You've been making sure you didn't reach out to them or touch them or talk to them because you wanted to know that you were separating yourself from them because they made you mad. And my question is, do they even know it? Could you be mad and they have no idea? Now, what I want to show you is I just used the story formula. I set the scene. I took you on a ride. I had an obstacle. This lady couldn't learn. I had a resolution. We created this kit, and I applied it to you. I made the connection. When's the last time you had that issue? That's the story formula. It works each and every time if you make it work. Now, let me show you the actions that you could take to implement this formula, because if you do this, it will benefit you in ways that you have no idea. You have to write out the key points of this formula. Write them out. And then fill in the blanks. What is the scene? What's the journey you're going to take them on? You're taking them on a ride. What's the obstacle? What's the resolution? What's the connection? You want to write this out. Now, you want to practice this story in front of test audiences, people that say, "Hey, let me hear what you said," and you get feedback from them. What does it say to them? Does it connect with them? Do they feel moved by it? Do they feel inspired by it? Did they laugh at it? You're really just getting feedback, because this feedback is going to tell you how you need to adjust the formula from now on. Remember, this is a formula. And so here's the benefit. If you get this down as a formula, formulas can be used repeatedly to create something. And this formula will help you create engaging, powerful stories. Now, the benefit of this is you'll have the ability to capture the audience's attention, you'll have the ability to motivate them, and you have the ability to move them in a particular direction because they love what you have and they love what you have to say. And this is the first part. Notice that I went through the story part. Next, I'm going to give you the rest of the formula, and that's going to come in this next lesson, the Story Time Formula, Part 2. I'll see you in the next lesson.